Hey folks, today's video is all about note-taking from a player's perspective when you're in a tabletop role-playing game. Okay, so I did a video about how I organize and plan and keep notes as a GM. You can go check that out if I remember to put a link up there. But I thought I would do a video from a player's perspective because it's a little different. I think the biggest thing is, as a GM, there's a lot more note-taking ahead of time. Players, I mean, you come up with the backstory of your character, but you don't have to really do as much prep before the session. It's more of during the session and then after session, if you choose. Some of the things you definitely want to keep notes of are your inventory, especially if you have like a bag of holding and you're going to have a ton of stuff. You want to keep track of it, and you may even want to add in notes of like where you pick something up. So if you're trying to find a replacement, or hey, I ran out of bolts, where did I get them? Haha, write those down. I also like to write out my spells. I find this helps me with memory retention, and this is just a general thing that most people actually have a better memory retention if you write it out. I know some folks that like to take notes on a laptop or an iPad, especially if you're playing like Roll20 where you're already in front of a computer. This can be helpful, but there's been studies that have found that handwriting actually most people remember better than typing it out. So yay! And if you love notebooks like me, that makes it fantastic. So another reason that you should take notes is that the GM and your fellow players will be very grateful. If you watch the Too Many Warlocks game, it's come up a couple times that I like to take meticulous notes, which is very helpful when you're trying to remember back like 10 sessions ago when we talked to this person, what did they say, or what was this NPC's name, or where was that place that we went that we bought the really cool magic items? I want to go back there again, because I have money now and can buy stuff. If you write all these things down, not only are you going to remember it a lot easier, but you'll also be able to go back and reference it and let your other players know if they're asking, oh, what was the name of that thing? I find it very helpful to come up with some kind of shorthand or key so that as you're going through the notes, you can identify an NPC name versus a location name, or an item, kind of those key things to jump out. So as you're flipping back through, it's easier to find references to those specific things. Here you can see that I have a little key up at the front that I've put together to remind myself. I also have a little sword symbol that I need to add to this key that I've decided to start putting in to show like combat and write down how many things and what things we fought. Less as like my player necessarily, or my character necessarily would know this, but as a player, I think it's fun to just know, like, hey, we fought a whole bunch of skeletons, or kobolds, or a dragon. That hasn't happened yet in this notebook, but maybe. Okay, so what should you be writing down? Now, this is going to vary person to person what your exact preferences are. I tend to focus what I write down on more important on what is important to my character than necessarily as a player what would be important. So there might be some bigger plot stuff that I write down, but I don't focus on as much as personal character backstory driven things. But I always write down NPC names. That way I can remember what their name is. I might spell it horribly wrong, but that's fine. Location names. This is good to remember where you were when you did certain things. So if you have to go back there, or if you ever need to reference it, it is nice having those locations. Stuff that has happened, I usually write down like major events that happen, major information an NPC has given us, whether it's about them, about a location, about an object, about plot, hook, stuff. Very important. Write down when you're given a mission or like job or something like that, write down what you're supposed to do, what you're supposed to get. We failed to do this in the first Warlocks game, and I have tried to be very specific of remembering that moving forward. It ended up being kind of hilarious and working out, but try and learn from my mistakes. I also like to write down information I've learned about the other player characters in addition to the NPCs. So if there's something about their backstory that I learned, or like, hey, this person appeared differently this time. Stuff that my character would notice, because I use a lot of these notes as a reminder to me of what my character knows, so that when it's been a week, 2 weeks, maybe even a month between sessions, depending on your group's availability and schedule, you can go back and look back through your notes to remember what happened and what did I know. Sorry about that honking horn. I also write down reminders and thoughts that my character had for myself. So these might be, oh, something over here sparked this idea that next time we're in the library, I should look this up. Or this was weird. I should ask this other player character about what happened, what their thoughts were. Or like, oh my God, I think I figured out who the big bad is and maybe what is going on. Jot those down so that I can remember. Sometimes I'll also put these on a sticky note so that it's easier. Like I have a running list of things to ask other players. So that as the moment kind of feels right, I can reference those things that my character has been thinking about and be like, oh, right, they were thinking about this. Hey, they just mentioned this bit of their backstory that kind of ties in with this question my character had. Nice transition into a fun role play moment. So diving into my notebook, this is my notebook for the Too Many Warlocks game. The front, I have a character sheet written out. Again, I find writing it a lot easier, even though we use Roll20 and it's all on Roll20. I have a physical copy in front of me. Hey, if anything ever happens, I don't freak out. Then I've got the bag of holding, because I'm the character that's carrying the bag of holding, so that keeps a list, as well as I've added on a little bit of hey, we've got a cart and we've got some stuff stored in there, just so we can remember that. Next, I love the Rook and the Raven because they've got the spells things, and then they also have these 4 quad, is that the right term? Quad pages that I use to write out all my spells. So I've got a quick reference guide of what the spells are, kind of what they do, and then concentration and what the components are. And then on the next page, I have the little bit longer description that I've copied over in a little bit of shorthand to reference. So I can be is this one creature? What exactly does it say? So that's super helpful. I do need to add in the page numbers for the spells. I forgot to do that. And then we move on to the first session notes. So the way that I like to take notes is I take my session notes in pencil so that I can be sloppy. I can erase things if I've spelled something wrong. And then I go back after the session and I rewrite them in pen. You don't have to do this. You could write them in pen on the first go around. You could write them in pencil and never switch them to pen. I find this helpful because it refreshes my memory, and I oftentimes try and do this the night before our next session so I remember what happened. And then as I'm going through, I can make it neater. I add in some of those key symbols, and also I use that time to clean things up, realize I misspelled an NPC's name, I can fix that, and write in any more of those notes, expand on something. Sometimes I'll move things around, okay, we actually got this information later on, but I'm just going to move it up so that it's all together because this NPC started telling us stuff about blah, 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 and then something happened and then they continued telling us more info. I might just move that all up together. One thing that I'm planning on doing that I haven't yet is starting a page all about the big bad, because we've gotten a lot of information on it. So that's one way that you could, maybe if you're not doing necessarily session notes, you might have just a page that is, here's all the information about this location, or here's all of the information we've gotten about this person. Here's all the information we've gotten about whatever big kind of plot, character, whatever it is that you want to keep track of. Organize the notes how they make sense to you. They make sense to me mostly session by session because that's how I'm going to remember them. But if it's going to be easier for you, if you organize them by character, by location, go for it. I just figured I would show you a glimpse into how I do it to give you an idea, to give you a starting point. That's what I've found very helpful, getting a glimpse into a couple of other people's notebooks from time to time, chatting with people, just generally how I organize, because like I do bullet journal-y stuff as well. Video. So there you go. If you've got any questions about anything you've seen in here, about note-taking, please leave those in the comments, and I will do my best to answer as many as I possibly can, and if I can't answer them, but have an idea of somebody else or another location you could go to check them out, I will direct you there. And I'd love to hear how you take notes, if there's a method that I could use. You know, it's constantly evolving. I'm sure my notes in a year or 2 years are probably going to look a little different. You might use color coding. Yay! That's an awesome way of keeping track of things as well. I just get overwhelmed with too many colors. If you enjoyed this video, I hope that you like it and share it with somebody else that you think would enjoy a note-taking tabletop RPG video. I'm sure there are more out there like me who are notebook enthusiasts and play D&D. A big thanks to all of our patrons, especially Alicia. If you want to support our channel, you can head over to our Patreon page and check out the perks of being a patron. All right, I'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative. Bye! I forgot my rings!